This is a podcast about our lived experience, which unfortunately includes infant death and subsequent mental health struggles. Please take good care of yourself and only listen if this content feels safe for you right now. We'll still be here when you're ready.
Hi, I'm Judith.
And I'm Alina. We are internet friends turned real-life friends who both experienced the tragic loss of our sons to sudden infant death syndrome in winter of 2021.
In the year after Aiden died, my husband and I both became unemployed. My parents divorced, and we had to move 5 times for various reasons.
And as for me, just a few weeks before my son Quinn died, my then husband had come out to me as a transgender woman, and we're subsequently divorcing.
It's been a lot.
It's been a lot.
But as long as we're living, we will love our sons deeply and work to make sure that we live a life that makes them proud.
Welcome to As Long As I'm Living podcast.
We're so glad you're here.
Yeah, well,
Somebody's eating snacks. We can't connect to the audio. Where are we? Who knows? Did the link work? I don't know.
all good. No pressure. I'm wearing headphones for the first time and just could not figure out how to set them up. So, man.
Okay, here I am.
There she
here.
is.
Hello, Leah. It is such a pleasure to meet you.
It's
I know
so
we've
nice
met
to
once
meet you.
before,
What are you eating?
on a phone call or a video chat.
We did. Yeah. It was really funny because I feel like I know you because I listen to you every week, but you have no
I
idea
feel like I
who
know
I
you
am.
because I've heard so much about
you.
you. I am so excited for this conversation.
Okay, so listeners, this is yet another interview in our Friends series. I am so absurdly thrilled to introduce you to the person I affectionately refer to as Zia Leah. So Zia means aunt in Italian. And I think of her, she's obviously like Quinn's little auntie and my cat's auntie. So I call her Zia Leah, but her name is just Leah.
Can I ask a quick question before we start?
Yes.
When I'm talking, should I say Alina or you, or does it not matter?
I think they'll know that you're talking about me. The one thing I will say is we don't say Judith's husband's name, and we don't really say Judith's daughter's name, although she has said her daughter's name, but her name's but we don't
I do
don't
know
say
Judith's
it.
daughter's name, but I won't say that as well. Okay.
You can definitely just talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fine. People will know. If you say you, I think they'll know that who you're talking about.
Okay.
So welcome to the podcast, Zia Leah. We are
Thank
so
you.
happy
I'm
to
so
have
happy to have you.
I'm
so happy for this
I will
conversation.
say, I'm gonna admit, I am nervous. I'm nervous for this conversation in the way that I've seen how affected Judith has been by the conversations with her friends, and that it is very emotional to go through the loss and everything with people. So that part makes me a little bit nervous, but I think it's going to be a really good conversation. So,
all right. Well, I'm ready.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about your friendship before the loss? How did you meet? What did the dynamic look like between the two of you before?
Okay, so we have a little bit of a meet cute. Leah, would you like to tell everybody about our little meet cute? Because it's all you. It was all you.
Sure. Yeah. So Alina and I met our freshman year of college. We lived in the same hall, down the hall from each other. And I had kind of been watching Alina from afar. She just seemed like this really cool, confident lady that I just knew I wanted to be friends with. But being a not so cool and confident lady myself, I was a little bit nervous. So my roommate and I at the time plotted to become friends with Alina.
And with my roommate, Audrey,
and
as
with
well.
her roommate,
us,
Audrey. Yeah. Yes, we wanted to be friends with both of them. And they had a whiteboard that they kept outside their door. So one day we wrote on it and said, "We are Leah and Katie from down the hall. Will you get dinner with us?"
That's the cutest thing I've ever heard.
And
I know.
And she said,
"Oh
yes.
my god, that is so cute!"
And the rest is history.
So now
were you sober when you wrote that message?
Yeah. So.
Yes, entirely.
Yeah. So we met. That's the way we met. We wound up living together for a couple of semesters throughout the rest of college. We also lived together for a whole year after college in an apartment full of people, one of those people being Kaylee, who you all know, and other friends.
And we actually lived in 2 apartments together after college.
Oh my God, that's right. So we lived in an apartment for just a couple months together right after I graduated. Me, Kaylee, and Leah for the summer. That was the apartment was a shithole, but the location was incredible.
Excellent.
And right in the center of Boston. It was so fantastic, by the Symphony area, if anybody knows Boston. And then we moved to Somerville, which is out like the little suburbs of Boston. And we just had a blast that year, again, in kind of a shithole apartment, but it was fun. And then, I feel like we moved out of that apartment, and I feel like we kind of all entered our adulthood. Like our like college days continued for a little bit because we all lived together in that like kind of like dormy, like frat kind of apartment.
Yes.
And then we just kind of like all became adults. You started dating your now husband, and you eventually moved in with him. And I was dating Kaylee, and we moved into our own apartment, and everybody was like kind of on their adult life track. And you moved to Miami for graduate school, but you're back. Thank God.
Yes, I am back. But yes, that was something that happened too.
But I would say we have stayed in touch throughout all of this time. And all of this time, I would have considered you one of my best friends all this time. Even though I feel like there were times where we were hanging out more than other times, for sure. But
And so
close
tell
friends.
me,
definitely.
Leah, like, what did you and Alina do? Like, what was your friendship based on? You guys go out? Did you stay home? Like,
Pajamas.
Pajamas, always pajamas. That hasn't changed a bit. Yeah, no, I mean, like Alina said, I think our friendship has changed a lot over the past 12 or 13 years of friendship, just because sometimes we lived together, sometimes we lived in completely different states and didn't stay in as close touch. But I feel like our friendship, we did a lot of events and like event planning, I would
Yeah.
say. I feel like we
we'd
were
plan
always
the Friendsgiving. We'd
Yes.
plan
like New Year's party, Halloween party.
Yeah.
I think we didn't hang out as often when we didn't live together, but we always were like planning events and, creating Google spreadsheets and Google Drives and making sure that these events were going to go
making sure the rest of
splendidly.
our friends were like, keeping their lives on track. And
Yes. So not a lot of going out. We're not big going out people, but definitely a lot of staying in, watching TV, just things like that.
Yeah.
I think I would call our friendship a little bit like carefree. Like I felt like we were just always kind of like, I mean, we were definitely there for each other for, the tough things or the things that we thought were tough at the time. But overall, I would say we were always just kind of like having fun and trying to plan fun things and trips and things like that.
Life was simpler then, I think.
It was.
Yeah, we went to Vegas together. We went to Chicago for, I guess that was my bachelorette party. And so then to transition forward, like I would love to hear from your perspective when I told you I was pregnant with Quinn.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah, so you told me you were pregnant with Quinn right around your birthday. We went to Bantam Cider for your birthday celebration, and we carpooled. So we were in the car together. It was us and Kaylee, and you said that you had news. And in my head, I knew what the news was, but I was like, you can't guess that news. You have to wait for somebody to tell you, because if I guess and I'm wrong.
Did you know that they had been trying?
I think I said, I did not. I had a theory that they were, but I don't think I ever explicitly was told. And they were also in the process of like looking at houses. So I thought maybe that was the news. There was a couple things that it could be. And then, in the car, you told me that you were pregnant, and I was so excited.
And we had just found out, but like, I was just like, we were headed to my birthday party, and it was a drinking birthday party at a cidery. And so I had to kind of be like, I had to spill the beans, because it was like, I can't like fake a whole, party where I'm supposed to be drinking when I found out I was pregnant the week before.
And then when Quinn was born, you got to meet him, right?
Yeah.
I did. I got to meet Quinn twice. Once was by accident. It was, as everyone knows, it was right in the midst of the pandemic. So I went over to drop off like some food and a card early on. And Quinn was really, really little. So I wasn't expecting to be able to see him. I thought I was just going to like stand on the porch and drop things off. But Alina said, do you want to come in and see him?
And so you stood like on the other side of the room, right? He was lying on the sofa. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So he was like on the sofa and you were like, you had to stay 6 feet away with your mask on and everything. So you didn't get to hold him.
And he was beautiful.
Yeah.
And so cute.
He was so beautiful and so cute. And just, he was just fast asleep. Like so much was happening around him. I think your mom might have been over. Yeah. There was just a lot going on. But he was just like asleep and looked so beautiful.
I actually, even before he was born, I have a specific memory because, like as you mentioned, it was COVID, but so like most people didn't get a chance to see me pregnant, but you actually did see me pregnant because I asked if you would come take a picture of me and Kaylee in front of our apartment before we moved out. So I saw you from across the street. Leah took a picture on her phone. This was April of 2020, so that gives you like a real sense of how bad shit was pandemic wise. But from across the street, she took a little family photo of Kaylee and me and my baby belly in front of the apartment we had lived at for 4 years. So it felt like a big momentous occasion that we were moving out, and I was so happy that you were able to like capture that for us.
Yeah, I think you might have been the first people that I saw after the pandemic really started. And it was still this like, it was
right in the throes of it. Like, I was like, is this irresponsible that I'm making Leah leave her house from across the street? Like, that was like how unknown everything was. But you did it, and I appreciated it. And then you met Quinn a second time when he was about a month old. We did like just a little walk. And so again, you didn't get to hold him, but we went down to the park and hung out for a little bit with your husband.
And then can you tell us about how you found out that he died?
So Quinn died on a Monday morning or sometime the night before, and you texted me about it that Monday evening. Actually, I've never like told you my perspective of finding out about it, but I was picking my sister up from the airport. So I was driving back and I saw a text pop up from Alina. It was right after Kaylee had just come out. It was, she had just come out to you and to all of us. So I knew you were already having a pretty hard time. I was already, pretty worried about you. And actually, when you're driving and like you see a text pop up, but you don't like fully read it.
Yeah, you get like the preview.
Yeah. So I actually, when I first read it, I saw that you had said that Quinn did something in his sleep. And I actually, for the first 20 minutes after you texted me, because I hadn't read the text in full, I thought that you had sent me a text about something cute that Quinn had done in his sleep. So I was actually feeling pretty relieved. And I was like, oh, Alina's feeling a little bit better. And then we got to a restaurant where we had ordered takeout. My sister went inside to get it, and I read the text in full and found out that
he had
Quinn
died
in his sleep. Yeah. So that was my experience, and I was so shocked. I said over and over to my sister, I didn't know this could happen. I didn't know this could happen. And I think I actually did know that could happen. I had heard of SIDS. I knew that was a possibility, but I just never really thought it could happen to a baby that I love or my friend's baby.
So what happened then? What did you do?
So, I think the first thing I did was send a response. I think it was probably a pretty generic, just, I'm sorry, I love you. And I think immediately I was just really worried about, like what could I do to help Alina and Kaylee, all the while knowing there was nothing I could do to help. I wish I had a podcast like this one to tell me. But I did a ton of research. I think that's like all I did for the
And that's clear. That is obvious to me that you did so much research.
Yeah, I think I just spent like 3 days Googling, like, what do I do? And there was, some helpful information on the internet, but it was hard. It was just, I knew there was nothing I could do to really support you and Kaylee. I think I did come over. I dropped off a care package and said like a brief hello, but I actually think for the first couple of weeks, I tried to distance myself a little bit, which maybe wasn't the right approach, but I think I was so nervous about like interfering with you and your family, and felt like I should give you space. And then after a couple
we did have
weeks,
a lot of family there in the beginning.
You did.
Yeah.
You had a lot of family there. So, and then I think after a couple of weeks, we started to, like talk more, and I involved myself a bit more. But
so Leah lived at the time, in our haunted house, as we refer to it, the house that Kaylee and I lived in when Quinn died. That was 10 minutes from your house?
Around that. Yeah, really close.
Yeah, so really close. And then, like, the house where I live now, I'm still not that far from you, but I'm like maybe 25 minutes, half an hour, depending on traffic. It could be like 45 minutes because I'm closer into the city. But I remember you came over a lot for like tiny short visits. Like I remember you would come over and we would literally just walk around the block, or you would come over and you would drop something and I would hug you on the porch and you would leave. Right? Like that's kind of what I remember of you from that time. Is that like what you remember? Are there things I'm forgetting?
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Yeah, I think it was a lot of kind of short visits, or maybe like a little bit longer, like watch an episode of Friends. And then, yeah, I think definitely like shorter visits to sort of check up on you and do drop off food. But I think we didn't really get back into like the longer visits until a bit later.
So from your perspective, what did I look like in those days?
Yeah. So the first time I came to see you was when I dropped off a care package.
And when was that? Like the week he died?
It was the week he died, I think a few days after. And your mom was there and Kaylee's sister was there. And you probably don't even remember this. But
I don't remember it.
We watched an episode of a glass blowing show.
Yes. I watched that show like 6 full times in those early weeks. I'm not kidding you. I watched it 6 full times.
Yeah. And
it's called Blown Away, and I do.
They have another season out.
Yeah, they do.
I haven't actually seen it. I saw that episode, and I was not watching the episode. I was watching you watch the episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you've talked about it a lot, and other people have said the same thing. But you weren't there. Like I got there, you were in your bathrobe. I gave you a big hug, and we cried for a quick moment, and then we went and sat on the couch, and you were watching the show and you were commenting on the show and kind of like going through normal Alina motions, like saying all the things that Alina would say, but you weren't there. It was just like clearly like you just going through the motions, but not really like recognizing what you were doing or saying. I think as time went on, it every time I saw you was a little bit different. I think sometimes you did seem like a bit more upbeat, or depending on what we were doing, a little of Alina was back. And then I think there were other times that you were of course just really struggling.
I remember being really kind of like ruthless in my messaging to people. That was like, you can come over, but I might not answer the door and you might have to leave it outside. Or like I would love for you to send dinner, but do not come over. Or like, I was like, really like, Quinn died. I will not answer any of your text messages. Like I really just set expectations super, super, super low. And I don't remember doing that specifically with you, but did I? And also, how did that feel on your end, if in fact that I did do that?
I actually don't think you ever did that with me,
which
was surprising. And I had prepared myself for you to do that. I think I would have understood, of course, and been fine and maybe a little worried, but fine if you hadn't responded. But I think you always responded, even if it was just with a heart, or, you responded the next day. But I think you did. And you did always answer the door. But like we talked about, I think it was sometimes pretty quick visits.
Okay. Well, another thing that I want to bring up is that, Leah, you're friends with Kaylee too. And there was a lot in that house with the transition, like forthcoming, did Alina seem to grasp at that time she'd lost her marriage and her child? Or was that not even part of the conversations at that point, that early point?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I'm not sure. I think in part because I think all three of us, anytime we were together, were so much more focused on the loss of Quinn. Like, I'm not even sure I, that early on, was really looking at that either or looking for that. I think there were some moments. I helped Alina, I helped you clean out your house, which I think was a pretty emotional process. I mean, you had done so much of it on your own, but we did, pack up everything together. And there were so many things of Quinn's, but there was also so many things from your marriage. Yeah. And I think that was the first time that, and Kaylee was there for some of it too. So I think that was the first time that I really was seeing both of your reactions to packing up things from your registry to, but it was all just like so intertwined because we were also at that same time packing up little reminders of Quinn everywhere. So
Leah
actually, hard to separate.
Leah actually helped me throw out my wedding dress.
Really?
I did.
We actually, that particular part of the cleanup, so just to tell that story, so this was in August. Quinn had died in January and I was moving out of the house in August. And Kaylee, knowing that I was moving out and just to kind of ease the transition, had moved in with her parents temporarily. And so I was in the house alone for a couple of weeks before I was moving. And Leah came over to help me really get everything together, get it all into boxes and get it out. And I just remember pacing around my kitchen, not being able to make sense of anything, words. I was trying to make sentences. I couldn't make sentences. I was walking back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And the simplest thing of pack stuff in the kitchen into box labeled kitchen. I could not execute on that. And so Leah had to make this whole list. Remember, I was standing there and I was like, that's the thing that has to go into this box. And that's the thing that has to go into storage. And this is the thing. It was so chaotic because I was trying to pack up a marriage's worth of stuff, save certain things that I wanted to, get rid of certain things that I didn't really want to get rid of, but I had to because the marriage was over. Pack up my son's things that I wanted to take with me, but I didn't really want to be packing them up because he was dead and I'd rather that he was alive. And it was so emotionally confusing. And you were just there as a taskmaster and you just were executing on all that stuff when I was on the floor.
And it was such a time crunch. That was the worst part is I remember there was one time I came over and you were not in a state to be packing up the house.
I was not.
You had made this list that was written in horrible handwriting and you have good handwriting and you had no recollection of writing this list and you were so upset. You were crying. That was the only time I think I actually really saw you cry for an extended period of time. You let yourself cry in front of me, which I know you normally don't do. And I so badly wanted to say, we don't have to do this today. We're not doing this today. But it was horrible because we did have to do it that day because we were just on such a deadline with the house.
The movers were coming the next day. There was no time. I had to do it.
Can we go back for a second? Because I just heard you say something I did not know, which was that Alina doesn't let you see her cry.
I shouldn't say Alina doesn't let me see her cry, but I don't think she does it very often. I think, the first time I came over after Quinn died, you cried for a quick sec and then kind of went back to, and then
dissociation.
Proposed that we watch the glass blowing show. And, I think I try to sort of follow your lead when it comes to that. I think there's been a couple of times where you've let yourself really break down in front of me.
Alina, can you speak to that?
I would say that it's not that I let myself break down in front of you. It's that when I have broken down in front of you, it's because I literally couldn't stop myself from breaking down in front of you, typically. I am not somebody who cries in front of people. like you could ask my mom, like I don't remember if we talked about this when we interviewed her, but like they haven't seen me cry very much. They have not seen me feel big feelings. They know I feel them and I talk about how I have been feeling them, but I don't do that in front of people. I grieve very privately. Now, with the exception of, Kaylee and I living in the same house, Kaylee certainly, saw me grieving openly. And, my boyfriend has seen me grieve openly quite a lot at this point, but I don't do that really at all. Even with somebody like Leah, who I remember what I was going to say earlier, even with somebody like Leah, who I would say, for all intents and purposes, has gotten everything right. Like you did everything right. You were a wonderfully supportive friend. You never accidentally hurt me. And for whatever reason, that's just like who I am. I'm a very private person, a private feeler.
So Leah, how do you do everything right? Like, first of all, what did you do? And how do you, when someone is as private about their grief as Alina is, how can you be supportive?
I mean, first of all, it's very kind of you to say that I did everything right. I can think of many things I didn't do right.
Wait, I would love to hear an example.
Didn't think I did at the time. I'll come back to that. But I mean, I think it helps. I think Alina and I are very similar in a lot of ways. So it is very easy for me to, I mean, I obviously can't put myself in her shoes because I haven't lost a son, but I think I can say, like, when I'm in a situation that's really tough, this is how I would want it handled. And I think it often is very similar to Alina. I'm also a very private person. Like I also don't cry in front of people typically. So like that made total sense to me, even though it might not for others. So I think that's helped. It also helps that there's a podcast I can listen to where I'm told exactly what to do and how to do it. And I go back and I'm like, what do I do in this situation?
That's really sweet.
But yeah, I think sometimes I have a harder time like being there for people that are less similar because I can't necessarily understand how they're grieving. But I think we just do have a lot of similarities.
You know,
I don't know. I'm curious to hear your perspective, Alina, if that's like, if you think that's part of it or.
I do think that's part of it. And I think a lot of, I would like to also say that I think part of the reason you were able to get it so right, there's a couple of reasons. I think one is we're very similar, so your instincts tended to be good. I think that you are just a person who wants to do a good job at stuff. So you like, let me like really spend some time and energy on this. And you researched so you had good instincts. And then you also did so much research. And then 3, like, I think your life circumstances at the time of the loss were such that you had room to do that research and to show up for me repeatedly. Like I have other very close friends, Leah, who whose life circumstances were not, they just were in a different place in their lives with their other things that made it, I don't want to say they have more problems in their life because everybody has problems in their life, but it's just like the things they had going on made it such that they couldn't show up for me in the way that I needed somebody to show up for me to the same extent that you were able to. And yes. I hope you didn't like sacrifice your own self, but I know you were like, you were engaged and had a house. And like, I feel like you were in a life place where like you had like a little bit more room than, for example, like Julia, my friend Julia, who was like pregnant and sick as hell and like in the hospital, or like, and we're going to talk to her also.
Yeah, that's such a huge part of it. 100%. I think about all the time because so I left graduate school after 2 years, but I'm supposed to still be there. I'm supposed to be in Florida, or I would have been in Florida when Quinn died. And I do think about that a lot, that like the circumstances did allow me to just have like all this emotional energy and time.
I feel like it's important to highlight this because there's so many people who listen to the podcast that feel like they're getting it wrong. And now this is the second friend that we've interviewed that we feel has really done a wonderful job of supporting a grieving person. And what I've noticed is that part of it is kind of luck. Like it's kind of timing, like it just happened to be that you were not pregnant. So you were able to be supportive. It happened to be that you had the time. It happened to be that you're also the type of person that is empathetic in this way. And you're the type of person who likes to do things right. And I think those are similar qualities in the person that also was very supportive to me. But had she been pregnant, she wouldn't have been the right person. Had she been, like you said, like, I don't know, let's say she was in a different time zone and it just didn't work. There are a lot of factors that I think come into play that just have to be like just right. And if they were slightly off, the same action wouldn't come off as well-intentioned, and I don't think the griever would respond in the same way. And I think it's important to say that, just because I think there are a lot of people who beat themselves up. Why aren't I a better friend? Why aren't I this? Why aren't they opening up to me? Why aren't they trusting me? Whatever they do, they're trying to support a grieving friend and it's just not working. There's like a good chance, 50% chance it's not you. It's a 50% chance that it's like a life circumstance, or just like, this is not where your skill set is suited for. And the people who are doing it right just happen to be people who like to stay home. And so the fact that now you're a grieving person is staying home all the time, like, it's a better fit. I don't know how else. I feel like that's important to say, just because I feel like I know that I would be maybe I wouldn't be the best person to support Alina, because I am not it would not be intuitive to me that, of course, you're not going to show you're crying. To me, that would be like very bizarre behavior. And so I think I wouldn't be able to respond appropriately. It happens to be, Leah, that you're the similar type of personality. You don't think it's weird at all. You get it. And you're able to intuit what she needs because it's similar to what you need. That's special. Like, you're lucky that you found each other and that you guys are friends with each other. But I also think that it's luck a little bit.
Let me ask this question, okay? And this isn't even a question. This is a fact. I have been a bad friend to you over the last 2 years, okay? This is a fact. I remember we went on a walk like August. Like, I had moved into the new place. I was starting to date again. And I gave you like the huge dump of all of the shit that was going on in my life, which, let's be honest, was a lot of shit, okay? And it feels like it's constantly a lot of shit. Just shit and shit and shit and shit and shit.
A lot of shit.
And then we also were like talking about my like Hinge experience on the dating apps and whatever. And then I just remember turning to you and being like, oh my God, like, have you bought a wedding dress? Like, Leah was engaged. She was getting married. I hadn't even asked. Like, I hadn't asked a single thing about the wedding. Not a single thing. I think that was the very first time I asked anybody else a question about their life. And that was like 6 months after Quinn died.
More than 6 months.
Do you remember that? And you were like, it's okay. And I was like, oh my God, I feel awful.
No, I do remember that. I know you felt so bad. And it was so okay. It is still so okay.
But I still feel like, even still, when I talk to you, it's like, I'm like going on, oh, my heart thing. Oh, I have this heart monitor. Like, oh, I'm going for an MRI. It's like, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, how about you? And you're like, I don't know, like, my life's normal. I feel so bad because I just like spew shit all over you every time we talk. And then I get like, the nice Leah update.
No, but it's, well, okay. I have a couple of things to say about that. One, so first of all, I think that our friendship was going to change in that way if Quinn hadn't died, because you had a baby. And I know, like, I think having a baby for some friendships throws a wrench in it if one person has a baby and one person doesn't. And I never felt like that. And you know this about me. Like, this was going to be like life-changing in a way that I was very excited about. Like, I didn't want our friendship to be about you and me anymore. I wanted it to be about Quinn. That's like what I was excited for. And I think like our friendship has changed a lot in the way that you just said, but I like it being about you because I feel like that still makes it about Quinn. Like, I don't want to talk about my life. I want to talk about your life because it always makes me feel like, okay, like, we're talking about Quinn. And I think it's hard to pinpoint like when a friendship changes in a situation like this, whether it is because Quinn was born or because Quinn died or a whole mix. And I think it is a mix of it. But I think that's why for me, it hasn't at all bothered me that's what it's about, because I want to talk about that.
Like, I'll just say, like, if Quinn had lived and the pandemic eventually had ended, like, Zia Leah was going to be so involved in Quinn's life. Like, you were like so excited to be Zia to that baby. Yeah. So excited.
So excited.
We lived nearby. Like, we both actually, during the pandemic, each of us moved to houses outside of the city of Boston, 10 minutes from each other. Like, we moved to the suburbs, like, close by. you with your husband or your then fiance and me with Kaylee and Quinn. And it was like, really, I felt like it all looked, the outlook was rosy for our friendship to continue in perpetuity with a cute little baby as a little sidekick. And that's just not how it worked out. I mean, the friendship is continuing, but the cute little sidekick, he's gone.
That part has not turned out. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I think, definitely there have been changes, but I think I feel closer to Quinn when we're talking about your life. Mm-hmm. And I have a little picture of him up there that I'm looking at right now. But I always I don't know, sometimes I'll be like, oh, I'm going to see her mom. Like, she's having a hard day and I'm going to bring her food. And I don't know, I like getting to know that I'm taking care of Quinn's mom, even if that, means that our friendship isn't, always as two-sided as it was before.
Yeah, I would definitely call our friendship one-sided right now.
Alina and I talk a lot about this feeling of needing so much, and that many friends get burnt out from giving. And it's like, how much can someone give before they just say, I have nothing left, like this isn't reciprocal. You seem to be someone who keeps giving and you don't seem resentful about it. You seem like you're comfortable in that role of giving and you don't feel like you're tired. So can you talk about can you speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's similar to what I was just saying, where it's like, from your perception, I'm giving, but I also feel like I'm getting. Mm-hmm. Like, I think part of my grieving process is taking care of Quinn's mom. And I get something out of that. Even though, of course, I don't, I want to see you having good days. And, it's always hard when you're having a day where you really do need to be cared for both of us. So while I do want those days to be fewer, I think I fully recognize that it's a lifetime and I want to be there for it as much as I can. It definitely scares me to think about if there is a time in our future where, I couldn't do that in the same way. But for now I don't feel like it's draining my energy. I have the energy and it's something I want to do. So I don't feel like I'm giving anything up.
Can I ask if you've noticed a shift in how much I've needed your help since I started dating my boyfriend?
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you brought it up. And I'm curious to hear your perspective the other way, because I do feel like I have been there for you a lot less since you started dating your boyfriend. Mm-hmm.
You've had to be there for me a lot less.
Yeah, I've had to be there for you a lot less. Well, yeah, but also I think I am. I think maybe I'm not the first person that you do tell if you're having a bad day. It's probably your boyfriend, which I'm so grateful that he can be there for you, and he's often around. But
or Judith, actually, did you notice a shift when I met Judith? I don't think I was calling anybody. I don't think I was calling anybody. I think Judith filled a void that wasn't there.
Yeah. I think Judith and I fill different gaps, because yes. I have never called you, and I'm probably never going to call you. And I don't think you want me to call you.
Leah, if you call me, I will be so afraid. I will assume someone is dead. Okay?
Yes. My entire family and friend network feels the same way. I don't think I've ever placed a call. So everyone would be very surprised by that. But also I'm nearby and Judith isn't. I think we filled very different gaps, whereas I think your boyfriend and I probably maybe fill some of the same ones. Boyfriend, or since Quinn died?
The loss. Yeah, how am I different?
Because I one time had this experience making pizza with Alina that I will never forget in my entire life. And she says that that's what she was like before. And man, was it intense.
Yeah. Tell that story. And then I want Leah to say, if that isn't accurate.
Okay, so we were making this pizza in a toaster oven. And I was just going to take the pizza out and stick it in the toaster oven. Okay. But Alina was like sitting there measuring the toaster oven to see if the pizza was going to fit in the, she's like, Judith, it's not going to fit. It's not going to fit in the we need to cut the pizza. And I was like, what's the difference?
And so I was cutting it. I was measuring it and cutting it at the right angle so that the as much of the pizza as possible would fit in. And then I was also adding the corners. Like I was breaking up the pieces that I cut off and putting them on the edge because it was a round.
And she was like, I'm telling you, doing geometry and engineering to make this. And I was literally just going to smush it in a fresh start. Never occurred to me to do so much work. But man, she was really a perfectionist. And probably her employers loved it. I personally, it was a little much, but probably. But that's the only time I've seen her. She's like, that's what the old Alina was like. That's how I only know.
Oh yeah, you got a taste of the old Alina.
Tell everybody about old Alina and then how I've changed. Or honestly, like we're doing kind of a leading question here. Have I?
She said you had.
Yes, is it better?
Yeah,
I already said you have.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh yeah, no, definitely. And I know you both have like made this disclosure before, but I'm going to say it too, which is that I think there have been positive changes, but obviously like let's give them all up to have Quinn back for sure. 100%. But yeah, like when I think about you before Quinn died, definitely like always had a purpose. We always had a chore chart when we lived together, which I remember being like, I'm just going to do my chores. But we had a chore chart and we would mark off when we did our chores.
Oh my God.
And yeah, as I mentioned with the events, like there was always like a very strict plan and somewhere we needed to be.
I remember like on Friendsgivings, I'd be like, okay, this is the time the turkey's going in the oven. So let's go back. Let's backtrack. Who's going to do potatoes? Like what time is somebody mashing the potatoes? Like who's going to use this burner for this? Which pans are going to put everything in?
I want to vomit.
Yes. I remember there was one Friendsgiving where I was like very hungover and just not going to be there on time. And with anyone else, I probably would have been like, I'm going to be late. I don't feel well. But I was like, this is Alina's Friendsgiving. Like, we got to get there. We got to go, even if we're not going to eat. So I do think definitely we're all a lot calmer. It's been interesting for me as your friend with new Alina because I think you were also always like the decision maker.
Yeah.
And
100%.
And often the initiator. Like even though we're both introverts, I think I'm more introverted than you. And I also just don't tend to initiate plans with friends. I'm normally like the just go with the flow. So I would typically wait for you to initiate or you to plan something. And it's definitely been a big change being like, if it's going to happen, like I'm going to make the decision. I'm going to make the plans. Although still sometimes you beat me to it. Sometimes.
Alina does have a Google Doc and a spreadsheet for this podcast. Ask me how many times I've opened it. And I don't even, but honestly, I think you don't even check it that often. Like you're not so glued to it.
I just check it as often as I need to. It's just as needed.
I think that's like probably mentally healthier.
Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely, like, for our friendship, too, I think has brought us closer together in a lot of ways. Like, I think when we hang out now, it's very much just, like, go with the flow. Like, I don't know. Are we going to do dinner? Are we going to watch a movie? We'll see what happens when it happens, which is, Leah, I think, a little more my style.
Yeah. Leah and I have a rule that I encourage everybody listening to incorporate this rule with their friends. We have a rule that if at the time, it does not matter how late it is getting toward the plan, if you don't want to go, you can cancel. And we've each taken each other up on that and been like, this, I don't feel like going out. Like, let's do it, some other time. Or like, we will, there's always a good chance that one or both of us is in our pajamas when we're hanging out. Like, there's always no like pretense of like being fancy. There's no pretense of whatever, but it's like, if you're not feeling it, we just don't do it. Like, that's okay. Like, life's too short. Like, I'll see you when I see you. Like, we text every day. You send me pictures of your cats and vice versa. Like, I'll see you when I see you.
I do want to ask though, because I'm curious and I don't think I've ever asked you this. I love that rule and I am so glad that we have it.
Yeah.
I think I am more nervous to take you up on that.
Oh my God, please do.
Because,
pleasure.
But I am curious, like, are there ever days where like what you are craving or needing is company? And if you didn't get that, it would be really hard? Or does that never happen for you?
I don't think there has ever been a time where I've been upset and if someone was there, I would have felt better. Is that a crazy thing to say? But I think
No,
that's true.
I feel the
like,
same way.
My mom's going to hear that and she's going to be like, Alina, like, you got to let people in. Blah, 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 blah.
No,
But,
I
like,
feel the same exact way, but I feel like I needed to hear it from
yeah,
you.
if I'm having a bad day, I need people to show up for me in concrete things. Bring me food, come, empty my dishwasher. And like, you're so good. You're so good at that stuff. Leah will sneak into my apartment building and she will drop off croissants outside my front door and I don't even have to talk to her, which, by the
Wow.
way, you can knock and I'd be so happy to see you. But like, she just really takes it to like the next level where she's like, I'm going to make this as easy as possible for Alina to receive the help I'm going to give her, because I am not good at asking for help and I'm not good at receiving help. So you have always, like, I really love the way you always use the language of like, I would like to send you dinner when works, as opposed to like, would you like me to send you dinner? Because like, I'm never going to be like, yeah, I would love for you to send me dinner. Be
Did
like,
Leah drop off desserts for us?
Yes,
Oh,
she
that
dropped
was
off
very
croissants
good.
for
And
us.
she dropped off zucchini bread. And I think she made a care package for us.
Yeah. So when Judith and I went on our very first grief retreat last summer, summer 2021, Leah baked us zucchini bread and
We ate the whole
that.
thing.
We
The
ate the
whole
whole
loaf.
loaf.
We
And
put
do
it
you
with
remember
boursin
this was
cheese.
so weird. I think I was going to say we put boursin cheese on it, which I don't think was
I don't know what the
intended.
intention was, but it was delicious. It felt like such a warm hug when Alina brought those croissants into the bedroom and was like, look, Leah loves us. She brought us croissants. Like, I felt such a warm, loving hug, and I didn't even know you, but I just thought, like, that's like the nicest thing, that someone just wants you to like enjoy your time, like with your friend. So they're gonna help that. Like, I just thought it was so thoughtful. You did it without asking. You just like sent it. You just like you're right, Alina.
She literally snuck into the building and came upstairs and left them outside.
So unbelievably thoughtful in a way that I don't even think I could articulate my gratitude for something so small, but it really did matter. I think that you're really good at those small things that really add up.
And I do mean it though. I like doing that. It's easy. And again, it depends on life circumstance. But for me, it is easy to bake or to pick up food. Those are two things that I like to do.
What advice would you give to grief supporters?
Oh, that's a good question. Okay, the advice I'm going to give is actually, speaking of like things that I wish I had done better and want to work on. So maybe I'm not the one to give advice, but I do feel like having these conversations more, like as we're having these conversations, I'm actually realizing we don't have these conversations very often outside of this forum. So that's not really advice, but that's just so like I should ask more, like how, rather than just assuming like what you need. But yeah, and then I think just like following the other person's lead, I think that's just what I've been trying to do, and
you do a good job.
It doesn't always work, but for the most part, that's been helpful.
Well, you guys just have the most beautiful friendship, and it's been such an honor, to hear you speak about it. Just because I like got a little emotional there. I just see the love and I feel the love, so I think our listeners will feel it too.
Yeah. And I just want to say, like, I feel the love that Leah has for Quinn too. Like, that I can feel, even though she never got to hold him. Like, from the time I told you I was pregnant with him, you were so excited, and you were actually holding cookies for me because you were giving me cookies for your birthday. And after he was born, but still alive, you made me another batch of those cookies, and you called them your Quinn cookies because it was the same recipe that you had made that day that I told you I was pregnant, and then you brought those over like after he was born. The cookies, Quinn.
That is the cutest thing.
Quinn cookies.
Yeah.
And I do just want to say, like, I love that, like, you've created this forum where we can, I mean, not just here, but in general, like, it's so easy to talk about Quinn. And I think like I found that as a friend, like that's so helpful for me, like in my own grieving process as Zia Leah, to be able to like talk about him and miss him openly, versus I think when he first died, I wasn't sure what the right thing to do was. Like I didn't know if I was supposed to like talk about him. And you've just really like taught me, and I think all of your friends and family, that like, of course
I've always
can.
talked about him.
Of course
I'm like,
we
yes,
can.
let's do it.
To all of our wonderful new friends, we want to hear from you. Email us at aslongasimlivingpodcast@gmail.com and follow us on Instagram at aslongasimlivingpodcast. We'll get back to you as soon as our grieving brains allow.
Yay!